So our theme this month is Awaken, being awake. And it was really important to me as I was looking for the theme for December because, it's all the holidays and, we could do rebirth and all the things that would go with Christmas or Hanukkah and, all the holiday themes. But we've worked so diligently this year, month to month to month. If you go back and look at all of our themes this year, they all just pile up and they keep moving us forward, And so there's a line in the song, it's awaken to amazing. We're awakened to all of my senses. And then later in the song it says, on my way to amazing. And that's where I see us. Not that we aren't amazing, we are. On our way to amazing, only because we are still evolving. We still have that process that's going on in ourselves of understanding who we are. So that line, I don't have to choose between lonely and loving you. Last week I talked about the brain and how we sometimes do have to focus on one thing to get rid of that other thing that we don't want. And then I talked about being emotional multitasking, And it may seem like lonely and loving are two things, but perhaps they're not. Perhaps there is a place where we can love and still be lonely. We can still miss someone and love them, which I certainly find with Nora. I can still miss her terribly, but still love her. So as I said last week, I was going to leave here and go get a tattoo. So as I was preparing to do that, and a lot of you sent me texts about where to go to get the perfect tattoo and how to handle this. And as my son wrote me and said, Dad, all tattoo artists are not alike. Please don't just go somewhere and get a tattoo. He said, it's forever. Although you can have a tattoo removed, right, Alex? So I waited, and I got up the next day, and I went, today is tattoo day. Today is the day of Nora's accident, and I'm getting a tattoo today. Come hell or high water, I will get a tattoo. And I looked online, and I'm looking at all these tattoo artists, and I'm looking at what they do, and because I was told, see what they've done, look at their tattoos. So I found this guy who did a giraffe up the side of this woman's arm. That was so gorgeous. I almost thought maybe I'll get a giraffe while I'm at it. It was so gorgeous, so nuanced, so perfect. So I called this gentleman, and he called me back and said, I can take you at 12:30. And I'm right here in studio. I sent it to Corrine Draper, and I said, is this guy good? And she said, if it's him, make sure it's not someone else in his studio. Has to be him. It was him. It was Harold. T-Man Tattoo, Harold. So I made an appointment. So at 12:30, I'm going to get the tattoo. Now, Nora, I was getting the number 5. Because 5 is our number. I gave her 5 kisses every night of her life. Every day, every time I saw her, whenever she left me, I gave her 5 kisses. And she had designed a 5 for the back of her cell phone that she painted and did all these colors. And I had this bright thought, I'm just going to do the 5 on the back of her cell phone. I'm sure the tattoo artist can make me the exact 5 on the back of her cell phone. So I took the cell phone with me to have it done. And then I wanted to get remember at the bottom of it. And as I'm getting to the tattoo parlor, I'm thinking, wait, didn't Will works across the street from here for like a year? Surely he knows this guy. So I called him. I said, Will, have you heard of T-Man Tattoo? He goes, yeah, Harold. I said, yeah, Harold. He said, Dad, that's the guy who did my tattoo that Nora designed for my wrist. And I was like, that is impossible. So I go in and I tell him the whole story, and he's like, oh my God, I totally remember your son and your daughter. And I told him what had happened, and he was visibly moved. And I said, can you still do this tattoo? So he did, and here is my tattoo. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, hold on. So Nora designed this. Now, first he put it on my arm, and it was this big, and I went, not happening. I said, it just seems too big for me. And then he said, well, but her design is so cool. It's so whimsical. It's so fun because there's little dots of pink and turquoise and black. And he said, in order to really see it, you got to have it at least this size. And I said, okay, that'll work. So The reason why I bring this up, other than I did tell you I was getting it last week, so there it is. Now I'm like on a tattoo hunt. Because I've always wanted to get my shoulder done with a Ghana symbol for only God. There's a Ghana symbol that means only God. And I am going to have that done at some point, once I get over the pain of this one. Although it really wasn't that painful. It really, surprisingly, it was not that painful. So anyway, why do I tell you that? Between lonely and loving you, I'm never going to not miss her. I am always going to love her. And there was about an hour or two right after I got this tattoo where I was sitting with it going, oh my God, is this going to make me sad for the rest of my life? Because I'm going to see it everywhere. I put it in the exact spot where I constantly see it, wherever I'm typing, no matter what I'm doing, if I answer the phone. And within that hour or 2 hours, everything shifted. And I went, no, I feel like she's here with me. I feel like I've just embraced the loss. I've embraced the love. I've embraced the friendship. I've embraced the father-daughter relationship. So it's been pretty amazing. So the reason why I corrected Dr. Ellen on Awaken, the theme for the month is Awaken, but it's not Awaken as a destination. I want to be very clear. It's not you are going to be awakened. It's like we got to get over this whole new thought la la land type thing where it's like, oh my God, it's all God, it's all good. Yes. And life is going horribly, but we're pretending we're doing this spiritual bypass. So it's not about getting too awakened. It's about awaken. And you actually had it right. It's not a destination, but a command from within. There is something inside of me, certainly, and something inside of you that were you to get out of its way, it would be saying, awaken for God's sake. For God's sake. Awaken to who you are. Awaken to what's going on. And our, do I not have a picture? Oh, because I didn't say the title of my talk yet. You on it, Thor? Great. Okay. So the title of my talk today is, where is it? Awaken to all life around you. Now, it's not awaken to the life around you. It's awaken to all. She got it backwards. It's awaken to life all around you. I didn't proof this, so. Awaken to life all around you. I guess it could be awaken to all life around you, but it's not. Awaken to life. So awaken to everything that's going on that's all around you at all times. Meaning we got to get out of our hypnotic state of doing everything by rote and being willing to be awake to what's going on. So my second question in the 5 questions is, what wants to know me? What wants to know me? That voice inside of me, when I actually can get quiet and ask myself what wants to know me, there is a voice inside of me saying, wake up. Sometimes it's saying, grow up. Sometimes it's saying, pay attention. But there is a voice in there. What wants to know me? What wants to know me is a much bigger picture of myself, a much more evolved picture of myself, a much more awake picture of myself. What wants to know me is the me that walks on this earth wide awake at all times, regardless of what I'm feeling, regardless of what's going on. Why is there so much addiction in the world? Because we are afraid to feel what we're feeling. So we find something to take us away from those feelings. That's what addiction is. It's nothing else. Ernest Holmes says that addiction is creativity misrepresented. That's all it is. I'm going to drink myself into oblivion so I don't feel what I'm feeling. I'm going to shop myself through the holidays, right, to stop feeling. I'm going to do something that takes me away from being awake, and I'll go to sleep. I'll take a drug and go to sleep. I'll drink, I'll go to sleep. I'll do something. I'll have sex and go to sleep. Chances are you should try to stay awake for that. Whatever it is that you may be using to take yourself away from what you're feeling is stopping you from being awake. And this month you have the opportunity to wake up, to stay awake, to awaken. So how do we awaken? That's kind of a big question. How do I awaken? How do I awaken? Well, first I have to admit that I'm asleep. Do you know how many people are walking around asleep that don't admit they're asleep or even know they're asleep? They think that's awake. It's not. It is not awake. I think one of the reasons why so many people are getting stoned so much of the time is because they somehow have convinced themselves that that is being awake. That is awake. That's their state of awakeness. And I'm not up here trying to tell everybody not to do whatever you do in your private lives. But I am telling you there's a better way. There is a way to stay awake and live life awake and get the gifts that are here to get. And it requires us to be awake to do it. So, awaken to life all around you. How many of you know Swami Vivekananda? So, Swami Vivekananda, born in 1863, died in 1902. He died at 39 years old, which I find really amazing, bless you, that man died at 39 and made such an impact on this world. An impact that most of you don't even know, because probably you don't know that Swami Vivekananda is the person who invented, developed, brought to the world yoga. He is the one, when you back it up, he's the one that first brought those physical stances into being to connect the body to the spiritual life. He introduced Hinduism to the Parliament of World Religions, the very first Parliament of World Religions. He brought Hinduism to the world as a major world religion, which it was the largest world religion at the time, but nobody knew about it. We didn't have cell phones. We weren't connected. So he brought all of that and then purposely, on his own, brought it to the United States. His feeling was that, in the East, they all have this down. It's you people in the West that need to help in understanding this. And he brought Hinduism to the United States. But what's interesting is he was influenced by transcendentalism and New Thought. So when he brought Hinduism to the United States, some would say what he really did was came and took New Thought and moved it into a higher perspective. Because we still, in New Thought, work so much of what Vivekananda taught. So one of his quotes was this: "To see God, you must look deeply into the eyes of your fellow man." So here's a man in the 1800s who's actually saying, God's not out there. God's right here. This is who God is. He was one of the first ones, perhaps, to say, I am God. You are God. This is where we meet God, right here in this relationship. An awakening to that. And he says this: the awakening of life to its bondage and its effort to stand up and assert itself, this is called living. The awakening of life to its bondage and its effort to stand up and assert itself, this is called living. So, first you have to get the idea that you're actually in bondage. Do you get that? Ernest Holmes talks about this all the time too, that we are in bondage. Our minds are in bondage because we actually think things that keep us in bondage. So first we have to admit we're asleep to wake up, and then we also have to admit we're in bondage in order to be free, to really understand. And certainly as modern life continues to get more and more modern, we find more and more things to keep us in bondage. Cell phones keep us in bondage. How many of you have gotten into the practice of leaving your cell phone at home when you go out to dinner with a loved one? I see one hand. Two hands. He's lying? Okay. This is a tough room. Don't try to get away with anything. There are so many things that keep us in bondage. How many of you have gone out with friends and there's 5 friends at a table all texting or all on their phones checking to see what's going on? It keeps us in bondage. Now, I'm not saying it's not brilliant. I love my iPhone. And if Nora hadn't done a 5 in the back of her iPhone, I would have had a different 5. So I think it's all brilliant. But are we in charge of it, or are those things in charge of us? What is keeping us in bondage? This is what we need to wake up to. We need to wake up to the power that we have and the fortress of solitude. That's why I wanted that song today. Each one of you has the capacity to dig deep, to dive deep, to fall deep into the truth of who you are, and frankly, find the freedom that Eric Butterworth talked about, that the truth will make you free. Eckhart Tolle says, spiritual awakening is becoming awake to the aliveness of the moment. Becoming awake to the aliveness of the moment. You see before you a very emotional person today. My week was extraordinarily emotional, starting with Monday and all the way through to last night. It just was a week of pure emotion. And yet, I still lived through my week awake, pretty much wide awake. I did nothing to keep myself from being awake. I didn't escape into any kind of drinking. I didn't escape into I didn't escape. I basically stayed awake and dared myself to feel what I was feeling on the week that I experienced last year, and all of it come flooding back. And staying present to it, being fully aware that I was also with my husband, who was feeling what he was feeling, and my son, who was feeling it in spades. But I'm still standing here. Oh my God, I just heard that song. I'm still standing. Dun, 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 dun. I am. I'm still standing. I will survive. Oh, why didn't we do that song today? I will survive. I will thrive in the midst of this. That's what I choose. That's what I decide. So am I going to stay awake, or am I going to try to run away from it? My son and I had the most amazing talk. He said to me, you know, Dad, and I think I can share this. This is such a brilliant thing. He said, what I have found this year is that all the things that I perhaps might use to escape don't work anymore. So why bother? And that's the truth. These things that you think are keeping you numb, that are keeping you from feeling what you're feeling, they're not working. They're really not working, because frankly, you're going to come back feeling it 10 times over. Because all you're doing is pushing it down, and then it comes back up. And I'm not talking about just my grief. I'm talking about anything going on inside of you that lets you think somehow, mistakenly, that you are not the very presence of God. Any idea you have that there is something in you that is less than is something that you need to bring up and look at and be willing to look at. You need to be willing to look at yourself and say, no more. I refuse to live my life in that kind of fear. I refuse to live my life in that kind of judgment against myself. I refuse to live my life letting the past designate who I am today. I refuse, because I'm awake, and I am not numbing myself to the truth that I am the very presence of the divine. Spiritual awakening is becoming awake to the aliveness of the moment. And Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. I think we have to stop looking at everything outside of ourselves. I think we have to stop looking at ourselves from the outside. We have to stop judging ourselves based on what we see or even what we feel. And we have to be willing, really willing, and that's what this month I'm going to ask you to do. Yes, it's Christmas. Yes, it's Hanukkah. Yes, it's Kwanzaa. Yes, it's all of those things. But what if it's really, for us, just a month of awakening, where we awaken to the truth of who we are, and we stay awake to it. Stay awake. Notice what you use to go to sleep. Notice what you allow yourself to participate in order to ignore. And say no to it. Say no. I'm going to feel what I feel this month. I'm going to know what I know this month. I am going to take time in my solitude and know who I am. Know everything that's happened in my life. I was going to say to me, but it's not to me. Everything that has happened through me. Not identify with it, but acknowledge it, respect it, love it. Yes, all of this happened to me. This relationship went nuts. Oh well. This person left the physical plane. Oh well. I didn't lose that 40 pounds. I promised myself I'd lose this. That was not me, by the way. Lose this month, this year. Oh well. You still want to lose it? Lose it. Because if you're awake, you will. If you're asleep, you will fall into a sleep state of addiction or whatever shows up, and you will no longer have the capacity to do what it is you say you want to do. So this month, don't just sleepwalk through the holidays, please. Stay awake. and experience a deeper understanding of who you are in the midst of life. Jacques de Gouin said, "The more light you allow in your life, the brighter the world you live in will be." The more light you allow in your life, the brighter the world you live in will be. You see, what this teaching has done for me, on a good day, it reminds me of the greatness that this teaching can bring me. On a bad day, it reminds me of how annoying this teaching is. Because it just doesn't let me complain and get maudlin and be a victim. It just doesn't. I can't. I just can't. I can sit and cry. I can sit and be like, why? But, at the end of the day, I'm going to come back to my senses and say, these are all questions for you to answer, James. It's not out there. So, you want more light in your life? Then you've got to be the light you wish to see in the world. It's as simple as that. So this month, I'm just going to ask you to stay awake. Let's see how bright we can make our worlds this month. Let's see if we can stay awake to everything that's going to happen in this crazy month of December. Let's see if we can stay awake, if we can stay alive, if we can awaken to life all around me. Everything that's going on. And when you feel yourself checking out, when you feel yourself wanting to check out, don't check out, check in. Be willing to check in. Check in to that place where you are, the very presence of God, or whatever word you want to use. Because when I go there, when I remind myself of who I am, when I remind myself of who Nora truly is, then I recognize there's never a day where we are separate. Ever. And that allows me to perhaps be sad, but be love all at once. And I don't split my head in two. I keep it in one place, understanding that it is all God, it is all good, and I'm going to stay awake to all of it. That's my wish for all of us this holiday season. That when we get into New Year's Eve, we're not making resolutions. We've already resolved everything because we know who we are. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.